President Biden is on the defensive again tonight amid mounting questions over his handling of classified documents. This, as a powerful House Republican begins probing the U.S. Justice Department's response to the matter. Our chief White House correspondent, Phil Mattingly, has the latest.
On the first full day of a president under investigation, an attempt to focus on business as usual.
You know, we meet at a remarkable moment in our alliance.
President Biden welcoming Japanese Prime Minister Kishida to the White House to highlight a transformational shift in the Pacific nation's security posture. As he ignored questions about the special counsel now investigating his handling of classified documents after his time as vice president, and his press secretary continued to deflect or decline to answer critical outstanding questions.
I'm not going to go into any specifics from here. If you have any questions, anything further that's related to the review, or I will refer you to the Department of Justice or my colleagues over at the White House counsel's office.
For Biden, who has maintained this,
People know I take classified documents and classified material seriously.
even as the scale of the problem has mushroomed into a crisis over just 5 days,
We're cooperating fully and completely with the Justice Department's review.
the outward appearance of normalcy serving to cover what has been described by officials behind the scenes as a scramble to adjust to a new normal. All as new details emerge from the initial batch of 10 classified documents discovered at a Biden-affiliated think tank, stored in Biden's office there. Floor plans show a small closet to the left of Biden's desk and storage spaces in the adjoining conference room. The documents include a memo from Biden to then-President Obama, as well as 2 briefing memos prepared for Biden phone calls with the British Prime Minister and the President of the European Council.
We have been transparent in the last couple of days. Remember, there's an ongoing process, and we have spoken when it is appropriate.
Even as details of another set of classified documents found at Biden's Wilmington home, in his garage and in an adjacent room, remain under wraps after their existence was publicly revealed nearly a month after their discovery.
My Corvette's in a locked garage, okay? So it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
Just one of the many questions that remain unanswered for a White House facing a most perilous moment.
We have said that we are going to continue to fully cooperate. We have been. The president's lawyers and team has been fully cooperating with the Department of Justice, and they're certainly going to do that with the special counsel.
And Wolf, one of the biggest outstanding questions is the origin of those documents, how they got to the 2 locations where they were found. And in reporting on those final weeks for Joe Biden as vice president, what was made clear by officials that were familiar with that moment in time was just how disjointed that process was. Biden was on the road, visiting Ukraine, visiting Davos, meeting with foreign leaders. It was very much almost an acceleration of his work, something that made it extremely difficult for staff trying to pack up and close out that office. However the documents ended up in the 2 locations now currently under investigation, you can add the House Judiciary Committee to those looking into this process. The new chairman of that committee, Jim Jordan, sending a letter to the Justice Department making clear his committee had opened an investigation and asking for a wide range of documents in what is expected to be one of several probes from Capitol Hill the administration is facing as they deal with this new special counsel. Wolf?
Yeah, Phil Mattingly at the White House, thank you very much. Let's discuss all of this and more with our senior legal analyst, Elie Honig, CNN senior political commentator, David Axelrod, and CNN political analyst, Maggie Haberman. She's a senior political correspondent at the New York Times. So David, let me start with you. The Biden White House has so far been unable to fully explain its delay in disclosing the discovery of these additional classified documents. If you were advising President Biden right now, and we know you used to advise President Obama, what would you tell him to do right now?
Well, look, I mean, from a political and communications standpoint, the essence of crisis communications is to get everything out as quickly as possible and go from there. And that hasn't happened here for whatever reason. The original discovery was made. It took several months to learn about that. A second discovery was made on December 20th. And I think this has created problems, perhaps more problems than they would have had if they had been more forthcoming from the beginning. But I don't know what advice they're getting, Wolf, from their lawyers. I don't know what requests they've gotten from the Justice Department. I just would caution this. Everyone on this panel has lived through these kinds of stories over a long period of time. And they always start as 5-alarm fires. it takes a while to really determine whether they are in fact 5-alarm fires or just bonfires that ultimately get extinguished. This one feels to me like it's going to be that, but it also depends on whether there are more revelations to come.
Good point. You know, Maggie, there are now special counsels, as you know, looking into both the current and former president's handling of highly classified materials. Does this lower the temperature for Trump right now?
I think politically is different than legally. Wolf, I think David is exactly right in terms of the politics of this and the crisis comms aspect of it in terms of being a problem for the current White House. And I think that, at least from the position, short-term position of Republicans and Trump supporters, more advantageous for Trump just in terms of muddying the waters. But these are two separate investigations. And while, yes, there are aspects of these two instances and cases and problems that look similar, from what we know, and again, to David's point, there's still a lot to learn, but from what we know, these are not identical situations. The main difference is just the alleged obstruction by Donald Trump over and over and over for a very long period of time when the archives were trying to get these records back, and then when the Justice Department got involved. But I do think that the Trump people feel like this makes it easier for them. Again, I think that is purely from the standpoint of, the public is probably not paying attention to the fine points of this. That's part of, I think, why some Democrats are frustrated that there hasn't been more coming from the current White House.
Yeah, good point. Ellie, how much pressure is the U.S. Department of Justice under right now as it tries to navigate these dual probes into both Biden and Trump?
Well, I think this is an unprecedented situation for the Justice Department. Never before have we had a special counsel investigating a sitting president. At the same time, a separate special counsel is investigating not just the prior president, but these two people are likely to be running against each other in the next election. Now, by the book here, just legally speaking, these are, as Maggie said, separate investigations, separate special prosecutors, separate facts. And Merrick Garland, what he ought to do is let both of those investigations play out. And when the special counsels come back to him, then he will make his decision. But I think Garland also has to be aware of the political reality here, that if he is to decide one way on one, that will change the temperature and the pressure on the other. So Merrick Garland's got to do a balancing act here. He's a very by-the-book attorney general, but he also is aware, I believe, of the real world and the political reality.
We're learning then Vice President Biden's aide scrambled, David, to close his office during what's being described as an unusually busy final few days. Can you give us a sense of what goes into wrapping up and packing up a presidential administration's work at the end of a term?
Well, at the end of 2 terms, Wolf, is what we're talking about here, 8 years of history. The vice president probably saw thousands of documents and briefing materials over the course of those years. So it's not at all surprising to me that there could be mistakes like this made. One of the things that really does differ between these two cases, beyond what was already mentioned, is that Donald Trump doesn't even dispute that he took the documents. He acknowledges that he took these documents. He maintains that through some mystical, incantation. He made them. He took top secret documents and declassified them. But he acknowledges he took the documents. What the Biden folks are saying is that this was an inadvertent mistake, and that as soon as they found out about it, they returned the documents. And of course, that's what these special counsels will be exploring.
And this exploration is only just beginning right now, guys. Thank you very, very much.